Today is April 9, 2022, and the Tucson Astrologers Guild is proud to present Tara Greene speaking about Juno, the goddess of feminine genius, your personal genie. Tara has been a professional tarot reader and astrologer for 30 years. I've enjoyed reading her blogs for many years, and I'm taking advantage of our ability to have speakers by Zoom since Tara lives in Canada. She did live in Sedona for brief time back a ways, but moved to, is now residing in Canada, in Toronto, Canada. And didn't look like we'd get her down here to speak in person, but now by Zoom, we can have Tara. I'll let her tell you more about herself, and let's put our hands together and welcome Tara to our screen. Thank you for coming, Tara.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gail, for inviting me. I know this sort of took a while. I think I was going to come in person, and then, you know, just because of circumstances and COVID and all that. So I want to thank everybody for coming today. And yes, I love astrology. I've been a professional astrologer for over 30 years, and I also do tarot, and I'm an intuitive. Hang on. Gail, I need to see myself at the center screen here. Do I have to just change the view here from my point? Sorry. Okay, now I can't hear Gail. Okay, so can everybody see me on the center screen? Sorry, Gail, I just wanted to be able to have myself on the center screen here. Or do I need to do that right now?
You were on center screen for me.
Okay, for everybody else. Okay, all right, I'm getting a different view here. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for being here today, and my topic is Juno. And I don't know how many of you have really focused on the asteroid Juno. So in this presentation, I'm going to do a PowerPoint going through the history of Juno, why she's important, and how you can incorporate her amazing multi-dimensional 8-armed wisdom to help guide your life. She is the inner feminine genius. Okay, so let me just get started on that. All right, share screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, I want to make sure that everybody can see that. Okay, can everybody see just my screen there? No, okay. Can everybody just see? Okay, are you seeing my desktop?
It looks good.
It looks good?
It looks good, Tara.
Okay, great.
We see the
Okay,
small
so you see the
ones.
full screen, right? Okay.
Yeah, we see a full screen.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. So Juno, she is asteroid number 3. She was originally the Virgin Great Mother Goddess, ruling all women, ruling committed relationships, childbirth. She's self-creating. She is the feminine form of genius. And she is like a genie. So genie means genius, not just rubbing the magic lamp that Aladdin found. So she can be like your fairy godmother, because her symbol looks like a magic wand to me. Okay, I remember years ago reading someone said it was like a toilet brush, and I went, no, 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 no. She's not like that domestic goddess. That's the patriarchal version that everybody knows of Juno. All right, so here we go. So Juno, now she was called Hera to the Greeks. She was the original ancient supreme mother goddess, like Nuit in ancient Egypt. So if you know about the original great mother goddesses, they have thousands of names, okay? So originally in ancient etymologies, associated Juno's name with like juvo, to aid or to benefit, and to rejuvenate. So that word rejuvenate comes from Juno's name as well. So that's her Roman name, Juno. And of course, she is the wife of Jupiter. Sometimes she's connected to the renewal of the new and the waxing moon. So if you know where your Juno is and you know the phase of the moon, you might also want to include that. And so she is also associated with the moon goddess. Now, her theology is one of the most complex and disputed issues in Roman religion. She's even more than other Roman deities because Juno held many, many significant and diverse epithets. She had many names and titles representing various aspects and roles of the goddess. Her connection is with vital force. So again, the word Juno is about life force, rejuvenating, fullness, vital energy, and eternal youthfulness. So we always want to tap into her as the fountain of life and youthfulness. She had two sheep sacrificed to her traditionally, and otherwise she had two cows, and she is known to be cow-eyed. Okay, now she was the original ancient supreme mother goddess, so like Nuit in ancient Egypt, again depicted as a cow-eyed triple goddess of the earth and the heavens. And the cow-eyed goddess then associates her with Hathor, who was the Egyptian goddess of all. Now, the Milky Way was created from her breast milk. Okay, so every time I look at the Milky Way, I think that I'm looking at Juno's breast milk, which shot across the sky. So each one of the stars is a droplet of her milk of unconditional love. So to me, if you're feeling, down, or because Juno is the goddess of relationships, if you're having relationship trouble, just go out at night and kind of let yourself be nurtured by the stars of the Milky Way. It's Juno's, unconditional love, and it's very sweet breast milk if you've ever tasted it. And it is like the milk of life, of course. So she symbolizes the soul itself. Okay, the stars are our ancestors also looking down upon us and guiding us. And so Juno was worshipped in every culture under different names, like the goddesses of 1,000 names. This is a beautiful painting by Peter Paul Rubens called The Birth of the Milky Way, done in the 1600s. Okay, so in astrology and astronomy, Juno was the third asteroid to be discovered, September the 1st. Again, so she would be a Virgo at 18:04 a.m. I do have her chart, her birth chart, which I'll get to soon. She was discovered by a German astronomer named Carl Ludwig Harding in Germany. So she is one of the 20 largest asteroids. So I know some of you may work with goddess asteroids, some of you may not. And she is one of the two largest stony asteroids. I know the Japanese are sending probes out to poke around at asteroids and to mine them these days. She's one of the two largest stony asteroids, along with number 15, called Eunomia, and she's estimated to contain 1% of the total mass of the hundreds of thousands of asteroids in the asteroid belt. So she takes 1,593 days, or 4 years and a third, to make one complete orbit. Okay, so we can track her. Now, Juno to the Romans, Hera to the Greeks, she is the daughter of the Titan Saturn. Kronos is her dad, and Rhea, Zeus's mother. So she is one of the 12 Olympian goddesses reigning as the queen of heaven, queen of the gods. But she was also Zeus's sister and his wife, and again, associated with all aspects of the life of women. And the month of June is named in her honor, and that's why many women get married in the month of June. So there's a beautiful statue of her there in the Louvre, and a beautiful mosaic of her from Pompeii. She was considered to have these beautiful, big, expressive cow eyes, and it's a beautiful depiction of her. Her siblings were Neptune, or Poseidon, Pluto, Hades, Ceres, which is also Demeter, the Greeks, Hestia and Roman, Vesta, and Chiron, the wounded healer, of course. Okay. Yeah, she's very beautiful. I love this picture of her. It looks so realistic. All right. So again, if you deal with the 4 major asteroids, she was, again, one of the first 4 to be discovered in the 1800s. And she describes the 4 functions of Venus, or we're going to extrapolate that into 8. So her little symbol is like a flowering Venus symbol, above the cross of matter. And again, I see it as a magic wand. So 8 is also the number of infinity, and suggested to me a magical genie aspect. So Juno, like Persephone and Demeter, is also associated with pomegranates, the symbol of menstrual blood and fertility, also associated with the narcotic opium poppy. So Hera's name in Greek is the feminine form of hero, but has a different origin. It can mean beloved, as Zeus apparently married her for love. So Zeus, Jupiter, Jove, that is her husband. So the other goddesses, I'm just going to briefly go over them. Ceres, in Roman, Demeter in Greek, she's the great mother of fertility, Mother Earth, now a dwarf planet, of course, and she is the Earth herself, Gaia, the great mother of all. And the word Ceres honors Ceres. If you eat breakfast cereals or any bread, you honor Ceres. So the word cereal comes from that. And this was Juno's original virgin goddess status. She is the same. So they all came out of that same original aspect. Pallas Athena, or Minerva, she is the intelligence strategist warrior goddess, and the city of Athens is dedicated to her, of course. Her famous parthenogenesis temples crown the ancient city of Athens. And I'm going to talk a little bit about parthenogenesis. That's what the word virgin means, a goddess who conceives from herself. She doesn't need a male consort. And that was all the original mother goddesses were self-conceiving. Athena is the battle strategist, the intellectual aspect. She was usurped by the patriarchy and she became Zeus's brainchild, literally springing fully formed from his head. She's the only goddess to have no mother, and that's been a kind of a turnaround because it originally meant that she could conceive herself. So Nike shoes are named their brand, after Athena, which means victory. Athena, Nike means victory. And then Vesta, a Roman goddess, Vesta Hestia, the goddess of sacred sex and the hearth. They were tantric priestesses who served the goddess in her temples and healed men who were returning from war and shedding blood profanely. They had sacred sex with these women, especially when they were bleeding, to cure them of their PTSD and taking the war out of them before they could reintegrate back into society. Now, later Romans, of course, turned them into chaste, non-sexual Vestal virgins. But the word investment comes from this word Vesta, and we use that, of course, for money and what we invest. And Vesta was a marriage bed priestess, so she also has this function like Juno. So again, Juno, she was the original great mother goddess, self-conceiving parthenogenesis goddess worshipped in 1,000 forms. And she was the original holy trinity or triple goddess as maiden, that's Persephone, mother is Demeter Ceres, and the crone is Hecate. So Jupiter was added to the original female capital trinity by ousting this parthenogenesis virgin mother, or Juventus, her name was, leaving Juno and Minerva as Jupiter's two female partners. And if you study the tarot at the top of the tree of life, there's always one masculine and two feminine balancing each other out on the second and the third Sephiro. So Juno Hera was much older than Zeus, says feminist researcher Barbara G. Walker. Now her birthday was February the 1st, which means that she was actually, the calendar is different, but from our reckoning, she would be like an Aquarius. And that was when they celebrated her birthday in ancient Rome. She was known as Juno Sopita. On February 15th, during the Lupercalia, Festival of the Wolves, Juno was invoked as Juno Lucina, which was a rite of purification and fertility, and bears the name Februa. On the last day of February, leading into March the 1st, she was celebrated as protectress of matrons and marriages. So Hera Juno may have been diminished and weakened because she was forced by the patriarchy into a marriage with Zeus, but she never lost her glory, her strengths, or her dignity. Later male-authored myths turned her into a jealous, frustrated, manipulating wife. And her symbol is the peacock, reminding us of beauty and her all-seeing eyes. So Juno gives us the ability to see in multi-directions. Her symbol indicates our need to compromise in relationships. So for Demetra George and many other contemporary devotees of the goddess, Juno as a warrior goddess is the image of the turbulent nation princess, coerced but never really subdued by an alien conqueror. Juno was justified to be angry because Zeus was always cheating on her and raping other women. But Demetra George says she protects all abused women, and children, or victims of seduction, rape, and incest, minorities, and the disabled. So for that reason alone, these days, Juno would be a very powerful goddess to turn to for protection. She carries the promise of renewal for all the downtrodden, anguished souls, and for all victims of inequality. So who was Juno? Now, her symbol is the scepter of royalty, and Juno symbolizes the soul and soul-making. The Roman Great Mother derived from the Sabine Etruscan Uni, which meant the triple goddess whose name is the Yoni, or the universe, or it means one singular goddess. And she has dozens of attributes. You could call upon her as, sorry, I'm just going to clear my throat here, as Juno Fortuna, the goddess of fate. So she would be considered to be the goddess of good fortune, just like Jupiter is associated with the Wheel of Fortune in the tarot. You can call upon her as Juno Sospita. She's the preserver of women in childbirth. She is Juno Regina, as the Queen of Heaven. She is Juno Lucina, the goddess of celestial light. She is Juno Monita. She was the advisor and the admonisher and ruler of the moon, although that sounds like money to me. Juno Martialis was the virgin mother of Mars. That was one of her sons. One of her children was Zeus. Juno Capitolina, or Februa. The month of February is named in her honor as the goddess of erotic love. So February and then Valentine's Day, which we celebrate, also has a connection to Juno as well. So it's really fascinating to see how she is really interwoven with so many other stories and myths. Juno Populonia was the mother of the people, also associated with the moon in astrology. The moon governs the people. Juno is the goddess protecting women in childbirth and to whom one prays for children. So she's definitely a fertility goddess. Juno's sacred month is June. And again, many people marry in June. And in Canada here, we have Juno Awards for musicians, which is very nice that she's been kind of brought into secular parlance. So she is the feminine form of genius. The term genius was just revered for men. Okay, so Latin has masculine and feminine terminology. I know there's modern people, don't want to talk about genders or polarity, but everything is based on polarity, day, night, yin, yang. It's just forces, it's just magnetic forces. So the masculine term for genius, which is much more linear and logical, for example, Albert Einstein or Stephen Hawking or Elon Musk or Tesla these days, that would be their form of genius. But the feminine form of genius was Juno. Okay, and I intuited this years ago and then later found out that that was real, that was true. So her symbol, Juno's 8-armed symbol, is multitasking. And every woman knows that they have to multitask, right? Especially if you have a family and a baby and a child and a household and a job, especially these days, modern women who have families definitely know how difficult it is to balance all of these different things that they have to attend to, plus, essentially be in their feminine form and relate to everybody. So, Juno is really important to help you to balance out, even limiting things in this multi-dimensional, multitasking world to just 8 things and to call upon her and to know wherever Juno is in your chart, that is where you have your own genius. That's where you are very, very intelligent. So you would look at Juno in your own chart as a figure of intelligence and intellectual and all kinds of different abilities. So Juno was Jove's sister and wife, and he fell madly in love with Juno, but she refused all of his marriage proposals. Because again, she was originally a whole, complete goddess unto herself, great mother. Parthenogenesis is in many myths was actually a real thing. And my colleague, Maureen Walton, is just going to publish a manual on parthenogenesis because of a number of teachings that she's received that come from the Incan tradition in South America from Peru. So parthenogenesis is an energetic force where women just self-create. They don't need men to do that. And it's one of the reasons why I believe patriarchy started in the first place, because there was basically a golden age. They talk about the golden age in Greece, where men and women were equal and balanced. And it was a matriarchal focused spirituality, because everyone is born from the great void, from the dark, from the great mother, from the black hole. The Mayans believe that the black hole at the center of our galaxy is the birthing place for all souls. So throughout all cultures, everyone comes from the dark void of the great mother, of the uterus, the universe, all of that oneness. And so she originally self-created the light. The Bible that we know says, let there be light, but the primordial darkness is the goddess, the pure potential of everything. And so there was a balance years ago. Matriarchal doesn't mean power over, it is about equality. And so the men had their own place, of course, with the women, and each supported each other. But then again, the men started to feel insecure, and that's when patriarchy started. So how Juno and Zeus got together, or Jupiter got together, she kept refusing all of his proposals. She didn't want to be married, and she didn't want to be in a monogamous marriage, which didn't even exist at that time. So he made it rain and transformed himself into a little bird. And Juno felt sorry for this little bird, and she picked it up and she put it into her bosom. And then Zeus changed himself back, and Juno kind of laughed and fell in love with him. So again, in their marriage, originally they were very much in love, but Zeus, of course, all of his cheating and raping and whatnot, and she was very angry and revengeful because she felt she deserved fidelity at least. So I really thought this was a terrible model for the nuclear family, which is what this kind of traditional monogamous marriage is based on: Juno and Jupiter getting married. And Zeus, or Jupiter, and Hera, Juno, had 3 children. She gave birth to Mars, or Aries, Hebe, who was a cupbearer on Mount Olympus, and Hephaestus, or Vulcan, who was married to Venus, Aphrodite. So it was very much a royal marriage there. So Juno and Jupiter were very passionately in love in the beginning, which they kept secret for 300 years, which was the longest honeymoon ever. And he was really beguiled by her. I love this painting of Jupiter, Zeus, and Juno there. She wore this beautiful diadem crown. And so their marriage ceremony was the first of its kind in Olympia. It was the beginning of institutionalized monogamous marriage. It was hugely celebrated with lots of feasting and merriment, and that 300-year secret kind of indicates the amount of time it took for people to accept monogamous marriages for property and status, because before then it was like pagan marriages were just like hand fasting, and women had many partners actually, so there was no monogamy like we know it today, and there was community that supported women and children. But Zeus lied and cheated so many times, Juno was furious and always exacted revenge on the women and their children. She hated Heracles, or Hercules, the most. You can read about that in the Greek myths. So she represents the commitment and loyalty you crave in a relationship, and the shadow of jealousy, of control, of revenge and obsession, very kind of Scorpio-like themes. Juno represents these shadowy aspects of love, because we have this idealized aspect of love, which would be like Neptune, perfect love, this ideal romantic love. And that kind of shadowy aspect can be very toxic. So Juno expects fidelity, although she also cheated on Zeus just to get revenge, but she always stood by her man, like Tammy Wynette. So Juno represents the ability to overcome obstacles and keeping long-term relationships. Okay, and this has evolved into the nuclear family model, which is not really based on equality. Okay, so again, we're in a transition with that. Now, Juno spent a year alone every year to parthenogenically create new children. Okay, and so she parthenogenically created Typhon of Delphi, a creature with 100 burning snake heads, who became an enemy of Zeus. That was how she got revenge on him. And there are famous myths about Typhon. And then she conceived Ares Mars, and then Flora, and then Hephaestus, okay, the lame artisan smith god who won Aphrodite, or Venus's heart, and married her. Okay, so here it says Flora, and in another one it mentioned a different god, so their names are interchangeable. So Juno is the goddess of relatedness, and we're always in relationship to everything, not just committed relationships. Sorry, the dog just came in here. He's not supposed to be in here. Sorry. But as she also retreats for a year in solitude to replenish and renew her soul, herself, her own inner Juno, that is her own inner genius. So it's very important to relate to Juno as an inner aspect of yourself. Okay, that is, she is always there present as your own inner feminine genius. So if we're feeling, I don't know what to do, or perplexed, you would just tune in and meditate on Juno. You would meditate on how Juno can help you, how Juno can aid you, how you can, literally kind of mark out here's 8 solutions to this problem. So Juno also reminds us that we need to be a part in relationships, and also what we are a part of. We each need to keep our own space and our own counsel. So this is especially important for women who tend to lose themselves in relationships and in modern family life where, there's just too much. We're being asked to do too much. And, I'm sure and I know I counsel so many women, and women are just burnt out because there's this, super model, superwoman, and now they're supposed to have babies and be yummy mummies. And there's even more pressure on women these days to do it all. So women really need to step back to be able to feed their own Juno. And really my way of working with all the planets and these asteroids is that they are living archetypal beings, and we need to associate and to have relationships with them. So you would talk to Juno every day. You would give her offerings. You would give her food. I mean, in ancient times, people would set tables. You would create an altar to Juno. You would get yourself a little magic wand, even a kind of a toy one that you would get from a children's store, or if you used to like to play, princess or dress up, you would get a little magic wand, or you could even use a crystal as a magic wand, and point that and feel like this is Juno's scepter, and just imagine that it has her powers, her virtues, the 8-armed magic star there. So you would really bring Juno in as an aspect of yourself, someone you talk to, someone you ask questions of, and you really sit with her, and you'd start to develop a real archetypal relationship with her because she is alive, she's eternal. And the number 8 also is the symbol of infinity, so she's eternally there. So Juno and Venus were the only married gods in the Olympic pantheon, interestingly enough. All right, now, all right. So Juno, or Hera, was involved in the Trojan War. And so here's a picture of, the 3 goddesses, Eris, the dwarf planet, she was the one who threw the golden apple of discord at Hera Juno, inscribed to the most beautiful of all, and Venus and Athena all claimed to be the fairest and the most beautiful, and their dispute was the precursor to the famous Trojan War. Okay, here's another beautiful image of Juno here, where she's got, this is a Gustave Moreau's painting, where she's, the peacock, one of her symbols, is complaining to Juno. This is one of Aesop's fables, in which Hera's favorite peacock, now she has a symbol sometimes of a white peacock or a regular, that beautiful peacock blue color with all the eyes. She complained, the peacock, that it didn't have the voice of a nightingale. And Juno responded by saying that fate had assigned each bird its properties, and the peacock should be content with its lot. And their exquisite color, adds to the sense that, it's beautiful bird. The exquisite watercolor adds the ominous form of Zeus's eagle. You can see Zeus's eagle there, keeping a watchful eye out on Hera from a nearby cloud. So she was forced to wear a chastity belt while Zeus was constantly running around raping other women, which was very unfair. No wonder she was so pissed off with him. All right. So the peacock is Juno's symbol. So it would be good to work with peacock feathers as well, if you want to make a little altar to Juno, representing the all-seeing eyes of enlightenment. They're so beautiful, peacocks. And or to write with peacock blue ink. It was my favorite color when I was a kid. So birds always symbolize souls, and Juno is the goddess of soul making as the Virgin Mother goddess. She has multi-dimensional consciousness. So we hear a lot these days about people talking about multidimensionality, and really Juno would be the goddess that can help us really see into all the other dimensions where all time is now, and raise our consciousness into these higher dimensions. So she is, again, the feminine equivalent to the male genius of Zeus and Jupiter, but beauty and splendor are her domains, like Venus, right? So Venus rules beauty. So we need Juno's capabilities of seeing in all directions and dimensions to create relationships with depth and equality, not just love relations. St. Anthony described birds as purified by tribulation and then adorned with virtue, which is also a later patriarchal interpretation based on the Greek myths. And the white peacock is also associated with Juno. Okay, now here is Juno, the asteroid's discovery chart, September the 1st, 1804. Juno was at 2 degrees of Aries in retrograde, close to the beginning of the zodiac, which was a PowerPoint, of course. And at her discovery, Jupiter, or Zeus, her husband through forced marriage, is also at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So there they are in a not great aspect to themselves right there. And so this actually, Jupiter in Scorpio, perfectly describes, Zeus's power, control, sexual rapist, plutonic, ruling his infamous desire nature side. So again, they're always fighting and quarreling, and then she would disappear for long periods of time to be in solitude and to regenerate her virgin goddess nature. So she's, again, that self-conceiving goddess. So when I say self-conception or parthenogenesis, women's wombs, which are our holiest place, holiest organ in existence, even if you've had a hysterectomy, you still have a spirit womb, and men have spirit wombs. Juno would rule the womb also, and she indicates that we can regenerate everything from within ourselves, not just children. Anything you want to conceive of or create comes from Juno and from the womb, in a sense. So she is like a super Venus, so she would be related to Libra as the goddess of marriage, and Scorpio and the marriage bed. And so you want to look at where Venus and Juno are actually in your astrology chart. Okay. Okay. And then today, I happen to think, let's look at where Juno is today. So, there is no synchronicity, there is no chance. She is in an exact conjunction with Mars at 26 plus degrees of Aquarius, and conjunct Saturn, the planet of karma. This is a heavy placement, and I think Gail was saying just before when we were chatting that she looked out her window from Tucson and saw Mars and Saturn very close together in the sky. So if you get a chance to see Mars and Saturn, you'll know that Juno is also there with them right now. So this date was chosen in 2021 without me looking at it. And so, Juno wants to be taken seriously with a passion right now. So I think it's perfect synchronicity that she's in this kind of serious, action aspect. And they are both sextile Mercury and Aries. So that's why I'm talking about this. And they're trying to Lilith also in Cancer. So Jupiter is king of the gods, Juno his equal, queen and consort. Every prefix that begins with JU is part of their energy, So the word jubilant, in Roman, he's called Jove, jovial, humor. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, the sign of humor. Justice, so they just nominated that first Black woman judge in the U.S. Justice, judges, judgment, a jury. Jupiter rules sacred law, so Juno also would have to do with sacred law, which is above man-made laws. The word rejuvenate, that's where that sense of eternal life or youth comes from, also from Juno. So if you want to age backwards, Juno would be your go-to goddess. Even the word junk, jugular, go for the jugular, it's a main vein. The word juvenile, because it means youth. And the tree, juniper bushes, are sacred to Jupiter. In Sanskrit, the word jiva, which means the life force, is also connected to it. So if you want to make a toast to Juno from juniper, gin is made from juniper berries, so you would drink a gin martini or a gin and tonic to honor Jupiter and Juno, and you can certainly do that after. I might need one after this. So the ancient Egyptians who preceded the Greeks worshipped Juno as Nuit, or nut. And the word night, I believe, is an etymological connection to Nuit as well. She was the supreme goddess, and her body is, again, the vault of heaven. So every time we look at the Milky Way, and as astrologers, we're all connected to the stars. Juno, Nut, Nuit, Neith is also one of her names, are all part of the Milky Way galaxy. Again, Queen of Heaven, there's her body. There she is personified, Nuit, as her body is the stars arching over the sky. So in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, with an introduction from E.A. Wallace, Budge refers to Neith or Juno as the divine mother, the lady of heaven, mistress of the gods, one of the most ancient deities of Egypt. Nut was believed to be self-produced, again, parthenogenesis, and an ancient Saite tradition made her to be the mother of Ra, the sun god equivalent to Juno. Okay. So now Juno in other religions here. Now Juno's 8-pointed star over the cross of matter is also equivalent to the revered Hindu goddess Durga. Now, Durga is really an important goddess. I think people were talking a little bit about how crazy the world is these days. In Hindu myth, when the world was devolving into chaos, like all these monsters and demons, the demonic forces were taking over the earth, and the gods couldn't keep up with them, their last resort was to call on Mother Durga. So now remember, Durga is like Juno. And she has 8 arms, so those beautiful 8-armed goddesses, exactly like Juno, so we can grow those 8 arms. And she was the only one, Durga. She rides a tiger, which is also, or a lion, one of Juno's symbols, into battle. She slays all the demons. So I often call on Mother Durga, and her chant or her mantra is very simple. It's just, Hey Mata Durga. And you can chant that over and over. And if you want to listen to Durga's mantra, you can find it on YouTube these days. So one of her animals is the lion, like Juno, and her 8 qualities that are displayed here are qualities that you need in any balanced relationships, or even in our own life. So the qualities of loyalty and love. Love is all there is, right? And then the qualities of detachment, which is also about intelligence. And to have character, how do we describe character? Character is kind of what you're known by, right? Your own character, it's what we're based on. You would say character is inherent in your astrology chart, your personality. To have courage, to have strength, to have fortitude, to be happy, happiness, as that's Juno, Jupiter, being light, having hope and faith. Those are also Jupiterian characters that are also part of Juno. Righteousness, so doing the right thing, again, that has to do with sacred law, Juno and Jupiter, sacred law, not man-made laws. Everybody kind of knows what the right thing is to do. Again, righteousness, right? That the right thing, do the right thing. And then the quality of discrimination as well. And then forgiveness and blessings, to be able to forgive ourselves for being human. These are considered to be divine qualities. Okay. So that's a very interesting cross connection there. Now, more about the 8 different aspects of Juno. The Greeks had 8 types of love. And Juno's, English, they're kind of paltry on many words for different things, like the Inuit people have, 22 words for snow. The Greeks had 8 types of love, and Juno's 8-armed magic wand can represent these 8 types and how to work through the shadow side of them. I mean, we've all had, whether we're married, not married, whatever kind of relationship, open, whatever, we're always in a relationship with ourselves and the world. So Eros, sexual attraction and passion, what turns us on? What's that mysterious juice that attracts us to other people? Now, Eros is also an asteroid, of course, and many astrologers use Eros as well. Philia, which means deep friendship, affiliations comes from that. So Aristotle says that philia is dispassionate, virtuous love, and that is free from the intensity of sexual attraction. So it often involves the feelings of loyalty among friends. Of course, that show Friends is super popular. That would be philia or philia. So ideally, your beloved or your partner should be your best friend. That's very important to be best friends, not just expecting your lover to fulfill all of your needs. Ludus, which is playful love, a kind of open, mild, childlike, or kind of teenage dream, euphoric love or infatuation. But we want to keep a healthy playfulness alive in our relationships and in everything, especially if you're in a long-term relationship, a marriage, we can forget about this playfulness, but we always have to kind of feed our inner child. Okay. Agape is unconditional love for everyone. Now that's very much Pisces, unconditional love. And I just want to mention here that, of course, right now we're on the verge of Jupiter and Neptune coming together on April the 12th in Pisces for the first time in 166 years. Venus is also in Pisces, so we're very much able to tune into that unconditional love for ourselves and for everyone else right now. So to really feel that as one aspect of one of Juno's 8 arms. Agape. Pragma. So the word pragmatic. In long-standing love, you have to do what's pragmatic. You have to do the work. You have to get the job done. It seems very Saturnine to me about duty and loyalty and just, being like the rock for the family, right? It's very Capricorn to me, long-standing, pragmatic love. We don't usually think of love as being practical, or maybe Virgos do, because they think of everything as practical, or most earth signs do as well. And then there's philatia, which is love of the self. So we hear a lot about self-love these days, and ultimately we have to be able to love ourselves in order to receive love or feel that we're worthy of love. So can be sometimes one of the most difficult things, to love ourselves unconditionally. And again, I feel like this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction right now is very much about loving ourselves and really understanding that, all love comes from that self-love. We have to love ourselves. And if you've had a difficult relationship with your mother, for example, then you have to work with these divine goddesses. You would really have to work with Juno as the great mother and really bring her nurturing down. Or when you go out to the sky at night and you see the Milky Way, just feel the stars reflecting back to you unconditional love, where you could see them almost, the stars dripping milk that rains down on you. There's that metaphor of Jupiter and rain. And just really, whatever your imagination calls you to do, to connect with Juno, connect to these archetypes, to make it real, to feed yourself. Like as I do these workshops, I always start, actually at the last minute, I usually start channeling things like I am right now. So that visualization, to make Juno real, to make your relationship, to bring in that beautiful, like the stars light just raining on you, unconditional love. And then one called storage, which is family love. Or it's like the storage house of family memories and stability. This seems very Cancerian to me. So when family loyalty comes above personal needs, this can be very difficult. So it's like the mafia, you know what I mean, in a way. That would be the dark side of that. You're loyal to the family, the godfather in that case, right? Traditional immigrant families kind of always have expected this. Now, like Prince Harry having to leave his royal family in the UK to protect his wife and children and moving to California by leaving that toxic environment, he kind of had to break that storage. He broke the expectation of loyalty to the firm above everything else. All right, and sometimes we have to do that, especially if families don't approve of our marriage partners. This happens a lot. Okay, and then the last one is called mania. Mania means it's like a stalker, an obsessive love, unhealthy love, and again, that's kind of Pisces in a way. To be manically in love with someone that you can't stop thinking about them. Kind of interesting that is one of the major 8 forms of love. And I guess this is just to discern, am I just crazy obsessed with this person? Do I want to have a future with them? How do I relate to them? And just kind of analyze love in a way from that perspective. All right. So here's another way of relating to the 8-pointed star of Juno, used in many ancient cultures. And the Chinese Feng Shui is based on the 8 directions. And in Buddhism, they use an 8-spoked wheel of Dharma, or time. This is called the Kala Chakra, wheel of time. This is also the wheel of fortune. So again, everything, Jupiter, everything keeps, the more you learn about these myths and their interconnectedness, the more you can see it woven into everything. Pagans observe the 8 points of the wheel of the year as Sabbath festivals. So there's, of course, we know the equinoxes and the solstices are the cardinal signs, right? You can see that there, and that's east, north, west, and south. And then there's the cross-quarter days. That's what the pagans celebrate. And in Native American medicine wheels, they also use 8. So the cross-quarter festival days are, in the pagan terms, called Imbolc, which is February the 1st, which has come down secularly as Groundhog Day. Beltane, which is May the 1st, which is a fertility festival celebrated in the Camelot story. And then August the 1st is called Litha. So that's when we're halfway between summer and autumn. That's what these cross-quarter days represent, the midpoints between the cardinal seasons. And then October 31st, Halloween, called Samhain, or November the 1st, the Day of the Dead, is traditionally the new year in the pagan year in the Northern Hemisphere. And it marks, all of these midpoints actually between the 4 cardinal signs, right? Okay. So we can take this stance of Juno, because it's really important to kind of embody these symbols. So, the Vitruvian symbol of standing up with your arms out. So our bodies create that cross of matter. And then imagine these cross cardinal points in between the 4 points of our body. All right. And then the non-cardinal directions in the native traditions are what moves the wheel. The cardinals are stable, right? And then they move the wheel. So 8 is the symbol of infinity when it turns on its side. And here in the Feng Shui wheel here, they describe these directions as, and now again, different systems have different directions attributed to different symbols. So here, this is one of them where you just, describe all these different 8 parts of how we relate to the world. All right, and here's another way of working with Juno. This is Saraswati. She's an earlier form of Juno, again, in the Hindu pantheon, Great Mother. She's the goddess of knowledge and intelligence, of music, of art, of speech, of wisdom and learning. And her symbol is also the all-seeing eye of the peacock. And her symbol is the sitar. So the peacock symbolizes colorful splendor, celebration of dance, and peacocks devour snakes. The alchemical ability to transmute the poison of the ego into the radiant plumage of enlightenment. So that's what Saraswati is, okay? So the sitar means music of the stars, okay? She is part of a trinity of goddesses with Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, and Parvati. They are the female counterparts of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, who create, maintain, and regenerate the universe. So in Rome, the peacock was the bird of Juno, symbolizing the many colored veils of the goddess and the manifested world, as well as her watchfulness and omnipresence. So think about the stars in the sky as being the ancestors looking down at us. It also meant the single eye of spirit. And Juno, or Jove is also united with Juno, his divine consort, presiding over the multitude and diversity of all the manifested forms. And in alchemy, the peacock's tail stood for a wondrous display of colors and visions, bringing about mystical awareness of the dreamlike nature of existence, born out of blackness, out of the void, and the despair experienced in the phase of putrefaction in alchemy. And of course, the male peacock is the one who has the big, beautiful displays to attract the feminine. So peacocking is kind of like a male form of female attraction. So it's interesting that it's opposite. Okay, now here's Juno in her disguise as Mother Mary. She is the goddess in the birth and death, spring and autumn. Juno represents the Great Mother as many forms. Now her symbols are the crown. So of course, Queen Elizabeth, or any queen, wears a crown or a diadem. The peacock, the cuckoo, the lion, the cow, and the pomegranate, which was originally a symbol of menstruation and later turned into a marital love and fertility symbol. And again, she's connected to Persephone, and again, pomegranates. Here she is as the Madonna, wearing the crown, holding the pomegranate, and baby Jesus. Jesus is a genius. Okay, another Juno's sacred symbols is the lily, or the fleur de lis, used on the French flag, and the lotus, incorporating the Ionic emblem. Now, for those of you in the Southwest, Juno is also connected, I believe, to the 8-armed symbol of Spider Woman, who wove the universe into existence. So in the Southwest native myth, the Spider Woman is the wisdom keeper, the grandmother figure, the female figure. So the Hopi artist Michael Cabote says, "When I wanted to get out from illness, there was a spider woman in my mind who spoke to me, and she became my strength and my courage to pull me out." So Spider Woman appears in stories throughout the Southwest, often as a powerful teacher and helper. In some Southwest cultures, Spider Woman taught people to spin thread and weave cloth, sharing with humans the spider's ability to make webs. And we talk about the web, the maze, and the matrix. Again, that 3 kind of trinity of all that exists. The Hopi speak of spider grandmother who conscientiously weaving her webs throughout the world into existence. And in the Navajo creation story, people travel up through 4 lower worlds, creating chaos and disorder until they are banished from each in turn. So again, spider woman, so you should never kill spiders because of that. So here's some ancient temples to Hera Juno. She was actually one of the most ancient temples going back, I think, 800 years. This is the Temple of Hera Lacinia in Sicily, built in 450 BC. So according to Proclus, a Greek Neoplatonic philosopher who was initiated into mystery cults derived from Chaldean oracles, the Orphic theologians called her the vivific goddess and the source of the soul's protection. Okay, and there's another one here. Temple of Juno Celestis was built on the outskirts of the city, which is now Tunisia, between 222 and 235 AD. So again, the ancient Roman goddess Juno, the protector and special counselor of the Roman state. She has looked after the women of Rome. She was called Regina. She was worshipped again as the queen of the skies, and Celestis means of the sky, heavenly. All right. And here is an Orphic hymn to praise Juno. Here's a beautiful Rembrandt's portrait of Juno. So the invocation to Juno, and I would strongly urge you to work with these beautiful Greek myths. It really puts us in touch with how the ancients worked with the gods and goddesses as living beings. O royal Juno of majestic mien, aerial formed divine, Jove's blessed queen, throned in the bosom of cerulean air, the race of mortals in thy constant care. The cooling gales thy power alone inspires, which nourishes life, which every life desires. Mother of clouds and winds, from thee alone, producing all things, mortal life is known. All natures share thy temperament divine, and universal sway alone is thine. With founding blasts of wind, the swelling sea, and rolling rivers roar when shook by thee. Come, blessed goddess, famed almighty queen, with aspect kind, rejoicing and serene. I just think that's so beautiful. All right, let's see. Okay, so hold on a second. There were some other things I wanted to talk about Juno here. So I just want to know, is there any questions that people have along the way here? Just going to stop for a second and ask. We're an hour in here, thereabout. Is there any questions? I guess I have to stop sharing right now, right? Hold on. There we go. So is there any?
I didn't see anybody putting questions in the chat.
Okay.
I had one question.
Mm-hmm.
Back very early on, you talked about her being known for her intelligence. I mean, Pallas Athena was also known for her intelligence, wasn't she?
Yes.
Being smarter than the guy.
Yes, but really, essentially, you see, you have to understand they're all aspects of the same goddess, right? So they just differentiated them out, and this you would feature if you really want to work with just intelligence or that battle strategy that Athena is famous for. You would use her for a specific type of intelligence. See what I mean? I'm just saying that, in fact, what they're saying is that Juno was like the basic goddess, and then later on, they developed more and more differentiated out different goddesses, right? But you can, if you want it all in one, you can just use Juno because, again, she has those 8 arms. Do you know what I mean? She kind of has all of the attributes. She's like this big fountain, right, of knowledge of everything, right? So that's why I would suggest if you want to kind of do all of your shopping in one place, kind of check in with Juno. Okay. Now, are people familiar with Juno in their own astrology charts? That's great. Okay, so if you have your astrology chart handy, it might be good for you to get it out right now, or you can look it up after. That's okay. So I'm going to start talking about Juno in the houses here, and how you want to work with her on a more personal level. Let's see. I'm just trying to think. I think there might be something else here I wanted to talk about. Give me a second here. Okay. I liked it that Spider Woman was also associated with her, especially for all of you in the Southwest there. Okay. All right. I just want to mention that Juno in the science, the relationship between Hera and Zeus has at its source an arranged force kind of bearing witness to the idea that the human psyche starts off unrelated. And although coming from the state of complete union, whether of the womb or even prior states of non-being or unborn, our human life form is one of separation naturally. And so we live in longing and strife, born from longing to be reunited with the other. That's the basic, being wanting to return to the mother, or wanting to relate to other people, that we're not alone. That's a basic human quality. So the Juno myth is also telling us of our need to find our way back through the compromises that all relationships require. Juno continues to lead the way in our soul making. And as James Hillman, one of my favorite psychologists, talks about soul making, is what takes place in the mediation between us and everything we encounter. So it is a form of love making whose child is that ability in us to cross bridges between the self and others. So I think that's a really beautiful quote. How to honor Juno. Okay, so for me, you have to really get back to that. For me, it's, I kind of I've always remembered this stuff, and I'm sure you all do too, because we all carry within us. I mean, science has now borne this out, that, we carry all the memories, all the feelings, all the experiences that our mothers and our grandmothers had, because we were actually in the eggs of our mothers and grandmothers. But you don't stop there, because really it goes back through all time. So everything that ever occurred, you can access through your cellular consciousness, okay? And so you would have to imagine, your imagination is everything, that, Juno is this great goddess, that you go to her temples, that you are a priestess. So every woman, actually, I think I forgot to mention this, used to serve in the goddess's temples for a year. You had to do that before you could get married. And so that was a prerequisite. And there was usually a kind of sexual, again, they were like these sacred sexual tantric priestesses, embodying Juno, embodying the goddess. So, I would go out at night, you're all astrologers, astronomy, astrology, you'd go out at night and you just have that sense that the Milky Way, that is Juno embodied, or knew it or not, arching her body, that's her breast milk. And so you get, I love that, what that came to me when I said it before, just feeling that the stars are just this nourishing milk of unconditional love. It's all about self-love. A lot of working with Juno is about self-love. And so feeling that we're never alone, especially after what people have been going through in the last 2 years, being in isolation, being alone. Ultimately, if you work with Juno, you would not feel alone. You're in her womb, you're in her heart, you're in her, she is the whole universe, right? So you're never alone, you're never really separated. That's just an illusion that we have by kind of focusing that we're just here in the third dimension. And Juno's great gift is that multidimensionality. So to me, it's more like that's why I try to explain all of these different attributes, many different ways, using all the 8 handles, all the 8 arms of Juno, to connect with her. So whatever works for you, whatever works for you, she's going to have a personal relationship with you, different than everybody else. So, to nurture her, so to me, it would be like to honor her. You want to have a relationship with anyone else. So let's say, okay, I want to get to know Juno, because she's a real archetype. So I want to talk to her all the time. I want to invite her over and have a coffee. So maybe you go to Starbucks with her and you have a coffee with her and you talk to her and you ask her how she's doing and you ask her for help or for wisdom. And you would set up an altar, again, she's related to the moon. So usually you set up new intentions on a new moon and you have maybe symbols of the moon. You can see I have my sacred drum here behind me. Symbols of the moon, get peacock feathers, get some peacock blue ink, wear peacock blue, maybe get really dressed up really extravagantly like that, that Iris Apfel, the 100-year-old, women, she's a fashion icon who wears these incredibly brilliant clothes, like be the female peacock, right? Or insist that your partner dress up really colorfully, because that's what Juno likes. And so whatever ways you can to sit in meditation with her, to ask her to come and reveal herself to you, or to ask her to come into your dreams, especially right now with, Jupiter and Neptune, Jupiter and Pisces for most of this year. Your dreams are really powerful, and that's how archetypes work. You invite them in to your unconscious. You establish a relationship. She's your friend. She's your advisor. She's your go-to, right? She's the one with the 8 arms, so she can help you manage, juggling all of those different things, right? Okay. So, yeah, that's what I would do, is just keep saying, okay, so you have to get out of your logical mind and just, see her on her throne, with her magic wand. She is like your fairy godmother. Okay. So in a way, Juno was so unhappy in her marriage to Zeus, and really, the story of Cinderella, the fairy godmother is like Juno. So she comes with her magic wand, and in your despair and in their ashes, even though you've forgotten who you were, your divinity, the fairy godmother transforms you into the princess. So you can go to the ball and dance and attract the prince. And even though you look like you're this poor person who's beset on by the wicked stepmother and the stepsisters, this is what Juno brings you. She is your fairy godmother. So think about, I'm going to act as Juno, and I'm going to give you 8 wishes right now. So you better think very carefully about what you want, okay? Because the universe will always send you what you wish for. So maybe write down, what are the 8 things that I really want, that I really need? And these wishes can also be used in a charitable way, to give away to other people as well. So if you feel down, if you're depressed, you're going through a hard time, again, like many of us has been going through difficulties and losses and deaths and losing jobs and barely scraping by, you would definitely want, be like Cinderella at the depths of her despair, that the fairy godmother Juno magically appears for you and says, what can I do? How can I help you? So to me, that would be really very magical, really working with her as this magical being to help you out. So some questions here. Okay. So does that answer those questions? I would just say, use all of those different things, think about her in all the different cultures and all of her different aspects. So what if Juno is in a detrimental house? Okay. Well, then that might indicate, where you're dealing with the shadow aspects of Juno, where you're feeling, not respected, or you're not in equal relationships, or, that sense of reflecting back a sense of, where have I not been in an equal relationship or received the love that I needed? It depends on the house, of course, and other things, right? Lauren's asking, my Juno is at 29 degrees Taurus in her 10th house, the only planet asteroid in the 10th. Well, then I would say Juno is in a very prominent position for you. And, I think you mentioned before you were just starting to teach about the asteroids. So maybe you need to pay more attention to Juno and really bring her in a more conscious way, especially she's at the 29th degree. So at the 29th degree, of course, she's way more powerful, and she's in Taurus. So she's very sensuous. So I would really get into, I don't know what kind of colors you normally wear. You've got a beautiful, colorful background there, but really dress like a peacock and really dress very extravagantly and wear beautiful colors, and maybe wear that turquoise blue or something where you really feel like I'm in my glory and my splendor, and maybe because she's also conjunct, sorry, what?
Next to my Pluto too, in the 1st house in Leo.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So definitely, yeah, I would be very spectacular and go out and want to be the center of attention, and really feel like you deserve it, that you deserve that attention. And really, maybe your work needs to be more colorful or embellished or, multidimensional, whatever that is. I'm sure you've been doing what you do a long time. But also that she's connected to the fixed star Algol, which is a very powerful star, and Algol, Medusa's head, which is also a latter Greek myth. I do believe that, all of the goddesses who were the most demeaned were the most powerful, so she was actually, I believe, an Amazon warrioress. She was very beautiful originally. And of course, the fact that Perseus cut off her head was just a symbol that they were destroying the matriarchy. So I really always kind of go to Algol as well as, she's not a feared star. She's actually a very powerful star, right? Okay. Annie's saying, my Juno is in my second house, 22 degrees Sag. Okay. So in your second house, then Juno would bring you self-worth. You know, she would be a tool, an intellectual tool, an inspirational tool. She would bring you optimism. You know, remember, she's got that laughter, lightening up about things, you know, because her husband, Jupiter, is, you know, the big comedy, the big benefactor. So where are you getting the benefits from working with Juno in her second house? If you're struggling with money, maybe you want to call on Juno to help you out. You know, maybe she can help you to develop multi-streams of income, or maybe it's just taking accounts to, you know, that she's a valuable asset. She's part of your toolkit. Maybe you should be working with her more, you know, and use her as inspiration, you know, because she's, again, you know, as a 22 Sag, you know, she's a fount of knowledge and wisdom and always asking lots of questions. Annie says Juno conjunct her sun. Okay. Well, that would be very much like the symbol of like the royal pair, because Jupiter, you know, not that he's the sun, but he is like the king of the gods and she's the queen. So that's a very powerful aspect. I would really let Juno shine. You know what I mean? Like, she would be your source. Juno is really connected to what makes you light up and where you feel charismatic, and, you know, really beam Juno out, really get into a much more powerful relationship with her. She can be an incredible strength, and really the life force, Jiva, you know, that eternal youth, you know, of Juno connected to the sun, really rejuvenating yourself, right? So maybe you need to go and do kind of ritual rejuvenation with Juno, you know, or if you're not feeling like you're sunny, then go to Juno and ask her, like, you know, how come I'm not shining like I should be, you know, and really shine a light on her. You know, that's really powerful, Juno conjunct the sun. Are you in a relationship, Annie? Sorry. Is Annie there? I don't know if she's there.
She's trying to unmute
Trying to get
herself.
on? Okay.
Annie, are you
Yes,
unmuting
I'm
yourself?
married. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
I'm married
So,
for many years.
okay. So, you know, Juno conjunct the sun in long-term relationships, I mean, you would shine in a long-term relationship, you know what I mean? That would be your, like, the hostess with the mostess, and all of those wonderful, you know, qualities, right? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Elizabeth says, I have Juno on my north node. Okay, Persephone on her AC, Pallas on the midheaven, and Vesta on her Venus. Wow. Okay, so you're very strongly connected to those powerful goddesses. So Juno on your north node. Again, you know, your north node is what you need to evolve towards. So really, you need to use Juno. I don't know what sign she's in. You didn't mention it. But definitely Juno would be your go-to goddess. She would be your GPS, you know. Again, she is related to Persephone, although Persephone has, of course, a different mythology. But again, you're aspiring to Juno, Persephone, that sense of rebirth. You know, Persephone is the goddess of the underworld, you know, of death, rebirth. She rules the underworld with Pluto. And Pallas Athena on your MC. Yeah, so again, go-to battle strategist, you know, very independent, you know, that's part of what you need to work with in your career. And then Vesta on your Venus. So I would say, you know, really learn about, I don't know how much you know about these Greek myths. The more you can learn about them, the better, the more informed you are. Again, Vesta, the root word of investments, and Venus, you know, would be like, I need to invest myself, my love, what I invest myself in, and money. You know, she wills money and luxury. So really investing your money, looking at that, you know, what's your financial situation? You know, and that love of Vesta, the love she's, you know, in Hestia, she rules the hearth. So she keeps the flame alive. And traditionally that was the spark of life. You know, the Vestal virgins were considered to be the foundation of what kept Rome going. So, you know, keeping an eternal light going, or the spark inside of ourselves. Ultimately, Vesta is our life force, honoring our soul. That's the life force. So you're very much involved, Elizabeth, in all of those goddesses and asteroids, and I would definitely, you know, work with them in a much deeper way. Now, are you in a relationship, Elizabeth?
Not in a relationship, no.
Okay,
I'd
have you
like to
been?
be.
You'd like to be? Okay.
Sure.
Well,
We've been
maybe
in the
that's
house for 2 years.
Right, I know. Well, that's why I'm saying for people that have been alone, and lots of people
Yeah.
have, have been, that's hard. But really, I would look at, how, you mentioned Juno on your North Node. Where is your North Node actually?
It's in the eighth house in Aquarius. That's why I
What
said
degree?
about the detrimental houses. Yeah. And
Okay, okay.
I've lost two very significant, my husband and a very significant
Oh,
partner. Yeah.
sorry to
So
hear
I've
that.
kind of stayed away from
Mm,
people since then. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, then all the
But
more
I'm over it.
reason. Yeah, okay, I understand. Well, all the more reason to have this kind of inner relationship, the inner genius, with Juno there, right, on your North Node,
Right.
right? And so, maybe you need to be kind of a Juno for other people. Do you know what I mean? Like become
Mhm.
a source of wisdom, knowledge,
Like a yenta.
like a yenta. Okay. Or a matchmaker,
Yeah, that's a yenta. Yeah.
like that, right? That's a funny one, but yeah, exactly. So yeah, but you're very heavily involved in all of those goddesses, right? So what degree of
Yeah.
Aquarius? I'm just curious.
20.
Okay, because
20.
then I was intuiting that it had, Saturn's just gone across it, and that
Mhm.
the 22 degrees are very powerful, in the last while
Well, my
too.
moon is 22 and my
Yeah.
Jupiter and Mars are also 20
Yeah.
and my Neptune is 22.
Oh my God,
So
right.
I know,
Yeah,
I know.
so
Yeah.
everything's interconnected there, right?
Mm,
Yeah. All right, great. Okay, well, thank you,
thank
Elizabeth.
you.
All right. So Jane says 1 degree Aquarius, sixth house conjunct black moon Lilith, square to Venus and Scorpio. Okay. 1 degree Aquarius. Okay, so Juno, 1 degree of Aquarius. So very independent. You need to be really your own unique genius, genius Juno, right? Aquarius is also tied to the symbol of, higher consciousness, genius, right? Inventive, conjunct black moon Lilith. So you're really like unconventional. It's like, nope, I do it my way or the highway. I also do workshops on Lilith, so I'm very much a supporter of Lilith there. So it's like, yeah, you would not want to be in a relationship where anybody tried to dominate you, right? So I'm sure you've probably kind of avoided that. Is that the case, Jane?
Yes, that's definitely it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I mean, you could, but somebody has to treat you with absolute respect,
Yes.
or else forget it. I'm out of here,
Yeah.
and
Yep,
square to
got
Venus
it.
and Scorpio. Yeah, exactly that. So you're very uncompromising. Excuse me. And also in your work,
True.
right? Yeah. So you have to do your own thing, definitely, and do it your own way, right? But
Mhm.
you would be a great teacher, I think, to help other women to have that no compromise, you know what I mean? Just my way or the highway thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was a therapist for a long time, and I worked a lot with women that were codependent or, enmeshed with alcoholics and so forth.
Right, right. So there you go.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you. North Node and Aquarius. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going down the list here. So Deborah is saying Juno conjunct Chiron in Aquarius at 9 degrees in the sixth house. Okay, another Aquarius in sixth house. Juno conjunct Chiron. Okay. So that would be a great marriage counselor, a relationship counselor if you have Juno conjunct Chiron in Aquarius, because you can be detached and bring in different solutions. So Deborah, what is your status in terms of relationships?
Oh, forget it.
Oh, forget it. Okay.
Yeah. I thought maybe it had to do with like, since it's in the sixth house, to do with my health, because I've been
Yeah.
sick my whole life, really.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I mean,
I'm a homeopath, so
interesting.
yeah, I've totally gone a different way with all of it. Yeah.
Right. Yes, of course. The sixth house is the house of health. But when you said Juno conjunct Chiron in Aquarius, for me it was like, no, you're there's a lot of wounds there, right? Literally, around being in relationships. But being a homeopath is interesting way because
Sure.
homeopaths look at all these different kind of aspects as well, right? So I
Yeah,
understand
and I
that.
have a counseling license too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a counseling license as well. So
Okay. Also,
a lot of
do
other
you,
people.
Yeah. Do you use your homeopathy to in astrology as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But
Yeah,
it'd
I
be
was a student of Eileen's many years ago.
oh, of Eileen's. Oh, okay. Right. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
She's the one who's moving to Virginia, right? I mentioned her earlier.
Yeah.
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 Okay. So I'm sorry to hear that you've had problems with your health, but physician heal thyself, right? That's Chiron, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, Deborah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Gail is saying she has Juno and Aries in the seventh conjunct Eris, opposite Vesta on her Libra ascendant, widely trine Ceres and Leo. Okay. So Juno and Aries in the seventh is still, Juno would be in a marriage house, of course, but it's like you know what you want, you go get it, right? And so again, you kind of like are a self-starter, you need to initiate relationships or whatever it is you're doing. And conjunct Eris, like that's like, okay, so that's interesting. I got to ask you, how does Eris work with that? It's like you have the whole Trojan War going on in your own little astrology chart there. Um, so that's kind of funny. I'm just curious. And then you have the Libra ascendant, so it's all about marriage, and you like to be the hostess with the mostess, of course, and trine Ceres and Leo, so the great mother, but the proud, courageous, defending your family and your children. That's a pretty interesting pantheon you have there, Gail. So I'm curious for you to talk about how Juno conjunct Eris opposite Vesta in Libra works in your life.
Well, partnerships have been very interesting. I've had a few. I've had quite a few, and I've chosen the Vesta way out. I said Vesta. Of course, it goes along with Venus, Saturn conjunction, and Virgo, but
Right.
Vesta to be worshiping the temple. To be taking care of the temple is my main. Is my marriage. My marriage is to the temple, to the goddess, to the work.
Right. That's great. It's funny. It's interesting just having Juno conjunct Eris, because it's like, you're going to throw a bomb in there, you know what I mean? Every once in a while when things get disagreeable, you know what I mean? You're the disruptor goddess there, right? So it's kind of a very powerful energy, right? And, Eris is Mars' sister, right?
Yes,
So
I'm sure I did some disrupting in my earlier
yeah,
incarnation, earlier life.
Right. But really, I would say, it can be a great thing to disrupt, to be a disruptor in the world these days is a good thing. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a positive thing. It kind of helps to wake people up.
Kind of a law unto myself.
Kind of, yeah. Sort of,
I have my own domain here that I am.
Right. Well, Juno and
goddess over.
Aries would also be very much, it's my own domain and I do it the way I want, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Gail. All right, so Tom, there's Tom here. Tom's the only man here, and men also have, I don't want to mean to sound like I'm such a feminist and exclusive of men, of course, men have their own inner Junos as well, right? So Tom says he has Juno conjunct Pluto in the fourth house in Leo. Okay, Juno conjunct Pluto. So they're brother and sister, actually, in the fourth house. So that's pretty powerful, what's going on in the unconscious there. In Leo, it's very dramatic, to say the least. Maybe more internally, but I'm sure it comes through in your family as well.
Yeah, the family life was very dramatic. My mother had a stroke the day after Kennedy died, I think partly because Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh, wow.
And then my sister had 4 operations. Her heart stopped twice in 2 different operations. So there's a lot of health problems. That's why we came to Tucson.
Okay.
I had asthma, but I got cured here.
Cool.
So and then there's also a situation. My dad was gone on jobs a lot because Tucson was not a great place to make a living. So I don't know if that could factor in there or not, the relationship between my mother and my father, regarding fourth house of family, because it never bothered me that my father was gone, but it certainly bothered my mother quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the model of, they, in a way, they didn't have a very good marriage. That's why I thought, if they're the foundation of, modern nuclear family, this is a terrible relationship. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is not good. Why would you set this up as the model, right? So I'm going, no, that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I
Well,
remember my mother once said, "I think your father would have been better if he was just single." Yeah.
Well, it sounds like, Pluto, there could be that revenge, that's Juno's thing, right? She's resentful, she's, gets revenge, it's like my mother used to do that to my dad, he was very tight with money and became a shopaholic just to get even with him, right? So that kept them fighting all the time, right? But that's very kind of plutonic kind of energy there, right? So there might have been this underground kind of seething emotional, of course, drama all the time, right? Kind of conflicted. But yeah, but Juno, Pluto is the Lord of wealth. So Juno can bring you, great wealth, soul wealth, right? As well, into whatever you do, into feeding yourself, into your home. It might be good for you to have a kind of a little shrine or something to her, right? Or at least just get some peacock feathers, or make some kind of energy, for her. Again, I love that peacock symbolism, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
you have to dress up like a peacock, Tom, and do the
Yeah.
peacock thing.
One thing, even though it was a rocky early family life, it all turned out really well, financially, etc. Everything kind of came out of the tailspin. So that was good. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Thank you. So Janet says, do I tech peacock blue hair? A little bit these days. It's this natural dye that I put in my hair and it turns blue naturally. But yes, and I love peacock blue. So Lisa says, Juno in Scorpio conjunct Pallas at 25 degrees in the 7th house. So Juno is naturally in the marriage house or relationship house, and conjunct Pallas Athena, again, that goddess of wisdom. So again, super intellectual. Whenever I see Juno in a woman's chart or anybody's chart, I tell them that that's, that they are really super intelligent, and and they need to recognize that, because again, women's ability to do this multitasking thing is not really recognized. And so I would say for you, you have very deep insights. Juno and Scorpio, you can just feel, you got that laser vision, what's going on below the surface, and then you can figure out what to do to fix it. I would say, because there's solutions there, and how to transform a situation. So you would be great as any kind of like consultant or something like that, relationships, or in any practical form, even, Pallas Athena's wisdom can be strategized for anything. So Lisa, do you work in that kind of capacity?
No, I walk around and bitch a lot, I guess.
You walk
No,
around and bitch a lot.
I'm pretty much a hermit, but I
Okay.
go on my own trips, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have extreme focus. I can figure things out, and
Okay.
I like to write and do the arts, and
Okay. So Juno is the goddess of
She's
the
a
arts.
poet.
Ah, poet. Okay. So Juno is like Saraswati, the goddess of the arts. So, it might be nice for you to have a little emblem, or, a poster of her. And in Scorpio, of course, you like to be alone. It's kind of secretive, mysterious, right? Very internal. There's lots going on there, right? So if you're a
lots
poet,
going on. Yeah, a
lots
lot
going
going
on.
on in there.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Thank you, Lisa. So Elizabeth's saying, can you actually buy peacock feathers? I'm pretty sure you can. I remember you could always buy peacock feathers. I think you probably still can online. I don't think that they've been outlawed or anything, but I don't really know. Elizabeth's saying we should have a ceremony on Gail's ranch. Sounds like a plan. Okay. Well, I like that. I like that as well. Okay. So now I want to talk about, I'm going to get back to my sharing my screen here. Come on down. Okay. I'm going to do that. Okay. Share the screen again. Whoops. Okay. I'm going to share that. Okay. Everybody can see that now again? Yeah. Okay. Everybody can see it? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Great. Okay. So where Juno is in the horoscope, we just talked about that a little bit. Gives a good indication of the kind of marriage or commitment partner will be. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, so it shows fantasy partners, soulmates. So Venus and Mars symbolize the ideal partner in the chart. But also notice if you have retrograde Venus or Mars in your chart, the fifth house describes the type of people we have love affairs with or get involved with romantically. Seventh house shows the kind of person we have serious committed relationships to. Traditionally, a first house marriage, ninth house describes a second marriage partner, if any. So modern astrology sees Juno as a soulmate, protector, or guardian. So Juno also symbolizes whatever turns you on, what stirs your soul to procreate. So, in your experience with committed relationships borne out with Juno in your chart. So I have Juno in Sagittarius in my second house, conjunct Mercury, and that's why I'm talking about and teaching about Juno, connected to Chiron and Capricorn. Okay, and I've been married twice. Okay, hang on a second. So now I wanted to talk about, because Juno is related to intelligence, I decided to look at some how Juno features in the charts of very super intelligent people, not just relationships. But so this woman, Marilyn von Savant, interesting name, Destiny, because the savant means a child prodigy. That is her real name, actually. Is considered to be the smartest woman in the world. She was born August the 11th, 1946. She's an American columnist. She writes this column called Ask Marilyn. And she apparently has the highest recorded IQ in the Guinness Book of World Records, although that's not something that they, you know what I mean, it's not something that they do anymore. But at age 10, she had 2 tests which calculated her intelligence as that of a 22-plus-year-old, and her IQ score was 228. The second test, made in the 80s, gave her an IQ of 186. So she belonged to Mensa, which is for people of, the highest intelligence IQ, and the Mega Society. So she had Juno conjunct Jupiter in Libra. So she has the exact perfect combination in a way. The as above, so below, Jupiter and Juno are together in Libra, the sign of marriage, by 1 degree. And they're also conjunct Chiron. And she was an advice columnist. So that's also very much using that super intelligence of Juno and Jupiter to help people. And Juno, Jupiter, and Chiron trine her north node. And Uranus, north node, and Uranus, conjunct Gemini. Uranus is the symbol of higher consciousness as well. So, okay. Just keep going here. Now we have, okay, and then there's this man called William James Sidis, who had the highest IQ ever. He was born April the 1st, 1898 in New York, with no birth time. He died July 17th, 1944. He was a child prodigy with exceptional math and linguistic skills. He is noted for his 1920 book called The Animate and the Inanimate, where he speculates on the origin of life in the context of thermodynamics. He was famous for being, I wrote preconscious there, but precocious, right? And then for being very eccentric, because he withdrew from public life completely and then avoided math altogether, but he wrote books on other subjects under many pseudonyms. He entered Harvard at age 11. He could speak 25 languages and dialects and claimed to have an extremely high IQ. So you can see there Juno opposite Venus and Mercury and squaring the nodes. So very dynamic. So we're looking for indicators how Juno does play out in these people's charts, right? Juno in Libra, squaring the nodes in Cancer, Capricorn. Okay. And here's Leonardo da Vinci's chart, considered a genius as an artist, and from his ideas and inventions, he foresaw helicopters and tanks and airplanes. He had Juno conjunct the South Node, exactly in Cancer in his 7th house, squaring Neptune, the planet of the arts and imagination, and visions at 0 degrees of Libra, which is a cardinal point in his 10th house, you can see there, of worldly fame. Mercury in Aries is also in a T-square to Juno in the South Node. So again, quite a dynamic connection here of Juno with the North Node. So he was meant to bring, Juno to the South Node. So he already kind of had this incredible intelligence that he brought in a very practical form into Capricorn. manifestation. And here's a Canadian singer-songwriter Joni Mitchell, considered to be a genius by many. She's often called the female Bob Dylan, and Joni Mitchell's songs have inspired millions of people. And her Juno way of writing from her own feminine point of view, her own wisdom, she did it her own way. So Joni has Juno at 24 degrees Capricorn in her seventh house of relationships. She was married twice and divorced, writes about her many lovers in her songs, gave birth to a daughter in her 20s who she gave up for adoption, and many of her songs honor famous women. So Juno trines Venus in Virgo in her third house of communications, conjunct Neptune in Libra. Juno trines Algol. There's Algol again. We mentioned someone said they had Juno on Algol. And Jupiter is in conjunct Juno in Leo in her first house, showing marital disharmony. Saturn in her 12th house in Gemini also in conjuncts her Juno. I made my baby say goodbye. That's one of her songs. All right. All right. So Juno in Aries. So just going briefly through the charts here, if you have Juno in Aries or in the first house, it makes you very independent. You don't really need other people. You're kind of a law to yourself, and you would initiate a love affair. But love is kind of a battlefield, which is kind of also the, Juno, Jupiter, they were always fighting with each other. You identify with your beauty and your brains, your independence and your fiery nature. So Juno in Aries conquers in love, so you want to be the one who kind of is out the gate first. So it can be very competitive. Your partner can also be number one in your life, and you can be very protective and defensive of them and from the world. So Juno in Aries goes to war to get the love or the object they want. They are never shy. She can be very sexual, of course, and need a lot of stimulation. And then the shadow side of Juno in Aries would be a lot of fighting. And sometimes people, excuse me, like to fight. This can turn them on. Lots of couples, make up, break up, and come back together. And in famous celebrities with Juno in Aries, Albert Einstein, Barack Obama, Rihanna, the Prince of Wales, Jim Carrey, Judy Garland, and Grimes, who has been in a relationship with Elon Musk. Okay, and then Juno and Taurus are in the second house. This definitely has to do with issues about self-worth, about values and beauty, sensuality, and money. So Juno and Taurus can be very stable and very reliable, sensuous and great lovers, and appreciate beauty, fine art, and craftsmanship. So they can also maybe that, or do that for money. They can also marry for looks and for money or security, especially if there's Venus in aspect to that. So the shadow side of Juno and Taurus is the partner is seen as a means to justify your own lack of self-worth as the shadow side. Or you can also even pick partners that can be emotionally or physically abusive. It can also mean that you stay in a bad marriage or a relationship because you hate change, and you'd rather than risk losing your material wealth or relationship status, you kind of stay in that relationship just for those reasons. So famous celebs with Juno and Taurus: Wallis Simpson, the Duchess of Windsor, who the king abdicated for. King Edward gave up his throne to marry this American divorcee. And that's how Queen Elizabeth became the queen, of course. Adele has this aspect, Mila Kunis and David Beckham. Okay. And then Juno and Gemini in the third house, which means you need a partner and lots of friends and a nonstop social life to keep you interested. So you need a partner who you can communicate with and laugh with. And then remember, we talked about Juno having that kind of youthfulness, somebody you have fun with. So love is kind of light and fun, although you might get bored very easily, and you might obviously have other relationships at the same time, because that's a Gemini, tends to have multiple partners or have someone else on the side. So harmonious aspects between Juno are enhanced if you have Juno and Gemini, but hard aspects indicate trouble communicating or understanding your partners. So the shadow side of Juno and Gemini would be infidelity, repeated cheating, just like Juno and just like Jupiter did to Zeus. That would be a major issue. Open relationships could work well with this placement if there's honesty, but they're always flirting. Jupiter and Gemini always flirting, have a wandering eye that can create mistrust and insecurity. So famous people with Juno and Gemini. Larry King had Juno conjunct Scorpio, and he had 8 marriages. He had Juno conjunct his Scorpio sun, screwing his nodes opposing Chiron in Gemini, 8 marriages. And Elizabeth Taylor had Juno conjunct Pluto in Cancer and had 7 husbands and 8 marriages. All right. So Juno in Leo. Sorry, did I miss one here? No, sorry. Yes. Juno in Cancer. Sorry, Juno in Cancer are in the 4th house. So this placement is a very traditional, based on marriage for the sake of children or arranged marriages. So there's a need with Juno in Cancer for nurturing and food and home and emotional safety. So cooking together, lots of cuddling and hugs, and being very sentimental about family, very much focused on the duty to the family would be Juno in Cancer. Children can be very much the focus of the relationships, or if they don't have children, then especially pets, or just taking care of the community, somebody else, or close relatives. It's very emotional and very sensitive, and so family is number one. They can be very private in a relationship as well. The shadow side of Juno in Cancer is that one person mothers the other, and it can be kind of a codependency relationship. That can be also a projection of the negative qualities of the mother or childhood onto the partner in an attempt to heal it, but it can also be negative. So women who are forced to be mothers but don't find it natural, it would be a shadow side of Juno in Cancer, and they might have postpartum depression as an account of that. Also that food, anorexia, kind of constant dieting. So eating disorders could be also a part of Juno in Cancer that are in a negative or a hard aspect or a shadow side, because Juno in Cancer, I have to eat. The way I love you is to feed you. Kind of the archetypal Jewish mother, the Italian mother, eat, eat, eat. So famous people with Juno in Cancer: Miley Cyrus, Mark Zuckerberg, Elizabeth Taylor of the 8 marriages, Prince, and Tom Cruise. All right, so now we have Juno in Leo, or the 5th house, which is traditionally the house of love affairs. So this placement thrives on the big drama and gossip, and Juno and Leo would marry for wealth or royalty or jet setters or artists, actors, strong-willed leaders, rock stars, directors, Hollywood stars, old or new money. They're attracted to creative people, and they're very proud of their partners. Big-hearted, very generous. Jupiter and Leo can be very generous to other people. Love and relationships are for having children, very much so. Children is part of that 5th house Leo element. But they also might think they can make over their partner through willpower. So there might be a kind of Eliza Doolittle kind of thing there, or even Svengali, kind of, I'm going to make you over. They can be very fun, and they party a lot. They like to play. They're excellent. They have excellent expensive taste, and they love children as well. So the shadow side of Juno and Leo can be childish and self-centered and very vain, narcissistic at the worst. They may ignore children or be jealous of their children, or be stage mothers. Stage mothers or fathers, projecting that their child is going to be the success that they didn't get. Or they could be jealous of if there's children from other relationships, or they project that the partner is mommy or daddy. John Lennon is one of the famous celebs with Juno and Leo, and he definitely called Yoko Ono mother. Oprah Winfrey, who's very independent in her relationships, actually, she's the queen. Elon Musk, Bob Dylan, Carl Jung, Ariana Grande, Billie Eilish, Kurt Cobain, and Nicole Kidman all have Juno and Leo. All right, so here's Juno and Virgo in the 6th house. Now, the 6th house is also the house of health. And in the questions, there was a number of people who mentioned that they had Juno in the 6th house. So this placement values a very strong work ethic, attention to the details, budgeting, serving community, and being humble. Hygiene and attention to diet is a big attraction factor. So if you have Juno and Virgo, you want your partner to be immaculate and have good hygiene, and have a good job and be very dependable, very reliable. Placement needs someone who matches long-term goals and values, right? So they need someone who's dependable, responsible, always gets the job done, practical. Remember, there was that pragmatic love, like someone who always remembers anniversaries and dates. And there can be a shared love of pets, again, because the 6th house is related to pets and Virgo. The partner needs someone who helps ease their inner anxiety and insecurity, especially about money. And that perfection. They could be a little bit too OCD though, a little bit too kind of crazy about you're not perfect enough. That would be the shadow side. The need for perfection creates constant criticism of their partner, which kind of eats up the love. The partner feels they're never good enough. So this can be childhood trauma projections, because you remember it's Virgo, Pisces, opposite signs, shadows in the relationship. And also hypochondria can be used as a manipulation tool, right? Or you're very dependent on the other person's income. So all of these are like shadow sixth house elements. So famous celebrities with Juno and Virgo, Prince Harry, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Johnny Depp, Winona Ryder, they were once in a relationship, Katy Perry, Quentin Tarantino, and Adolf Hitler. Okay. Won't say anything about that. Okay, Juno in Libra, or the seventh house, traditionally the house of marriage. So she kind of excels in this house. So if you want a marriage of equals and shared partnership goals, absolute equality, this would be Juno and Libra in the seventh house. And also being seen as socially very nice is important. So your social status is important. There's a love of beauty and the environment, fashion, the home. You want to dress up for your partner. You want your partner to look good. You want them to have social status as well. So again, beautifully decorated home, love of art and gardening, culture, you would go out to a lot of cultural events, lots of creativity. You need peace of mind. So that need to kind of get away as well, or to be, you're always sort of, you could be also the go-between for other people. It's good for marriage counselors and things like that. Communicating, listening to one another is very, very important with Juno in Libra, and giving equal space to be heard. They can be attracted to, again, very strong social influencers, money, luxury, and very artistic as well. So the downside of the shadow side of Juno and Libra would be marriage for the sake of appearances. Now, those were old-fashioned traditional marriages were done for that, to inherit property, and women were considered to be property as well. You can be afraid to rock the boat or say something to, because the relationship is imbalanced. So you're afraid to lose the relationship by speaking your truth and bringing justice there. Could be too much always giving in to what the other people demand for the sake of the relationship or the kids, or that you lose yourself in a relationship. It's always like, what do you think, honey? And I think in the olden days where women didn't have as much power or felt as strong in themselves, a lot of marriages were like this. I know that my parents' marriage, my mother always deferred to my father and was always very resentful of it. So also being the go-between in general for people is a very strong Juno and Libra aspect. So Juno and Libra people are Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. She has Juno conjunct Pluto in Libra, squaring Cancer rising. She married Prince Harry, the world's most eligible bachelor, and her love of fashion and style and her nurturing and care of women and children are of note. Okay, so that's all in her chart, I would say. Okay. So Juno and Scorpio are in the 8th house. Now Scorpio is the most sexual and passionately intense, obsessive sign. So Juno's rulership of sex in the marriage bed is especially significant. So you would definitely need a partner you're very sexually intense with and turned on by. But it can be a very obsessive, very deep, kind of like dying into each other relationship, very demanding. This is not a light relationship. It is super intense. You want to bare your souls to each other, and nothing is taboo. So a relationship with Juno and Scorpio would totally transform yourself and the other. So if you're doing relationship charts, synastry charts, you want to look at, of course, how your Juno interrelates with your partner. Okay. This is a very emotional, very soulful, very much a roller coaster ride. Scorpio strips the egos down over and over again. Now, this is the most intense sexual fling, but often people can't deal with that intensity and it can't last as a partnership. So this is where you would have kind of a mistress, a side person, somebody like that, Also, forbidden relationships would come under Jupiter and Scorpio, like Romeo and Juliet. And sometimes people are attracted to having secrecy, cheating, and infidelity with Juno and Scorpio, like Jupiter had all those extramarital affairs, right? So the shadow side with Juno in Scorpio is really working to do that shadow work. The power, the control can delve into S&M and dominance and secrecy, cheating, jealousy, possessiveness, psychological games may be an issue, trust and betrayal, obsessively watching the other person's every move. Can be very toxic. Sexual abuse, even rape and murder, or using sex as a weapon instead of, love and sex should be part of the same thing, not as a weapon. So famous people with this aspect. Now don't freak out if you have Juno in the 8th house. So I'm just, this is kind of like I'm talking about the most extreme aspects of Scorpio. Famous people with this aspect. King Edward VIII, who gave up his throne to marry Wallis Simpson, again had this one. Actor Robert Blake, who murdered his wife, and Jane Fonda, who had many marriages, and also Larry King, who also had about 8 marriages. So Juno in Capricorn, or in the 10th house. Love is very serious business. This is traditional, but they're also married to their careers. People.
Sagittarius.
Oh, sorry, I skipped Sag. Thank you. Sorry. Got you. Thank you. Sorry, Juno and Sag. How could I miss that? Or in the 9th house. So this placement values freedom and space and time apart. So long distance relationships are ideal for somebody with Jupiter and Sag, because you get to do this, your own thing, and then come together when you want. So people with Juno and Sag are often attracted to those on the same philosophical and intellectual wavelength, and religion or spirituality can be very important to them. But they can also marry people who are of different races and cultures. Again, they might travel together, learn to go to school together, explore. They adventure together. They like to have adventures as part of their love. Trust and honesty are extremely important values. They need a partner who makes them laugh. Pets are important. Nature is important to them. Juno in Sag, because Jupiter also rules Sagittarius, not necessarily domestic goddesses. So the other partner has to accept that you're going to be a bit messy, and then one partner might clean up after the other. So again, you want to look at where Juno is. If you have Juno and Sag, you're in the 9th house to your partners. But definitely this would be a marriage of people who share, idealism, honesty, trust, hope, faith. Religion can be very important to them. The shadow side of Juno and Sag, it can be procrastination, which infuriates the other partner, and also being way too blunt, that infamous, Sagittarius hoof and mouth disease, too blunt, hurt the other people, and you're kind of naive about that, right? They promise more they can deliver, so that can lead to disappointments, and love needs to be this grand adventure, or else Juno in Sag gets very bored, okay, and they get disappointment. So they have to learn that life cannot always be this exciting adventure. And betrayal is absolutely unforgivable with Juno and Sag, because once you break that trust, that is it. Juno and Sag can also be kind of holier than thou, can be a little arrogant, judgmental, never pleased, and kind of getting on that soapbox, of being hypocritical and sort of, do as I say, not as I do. So famous celebs with Juno and Sag: Lady Gaga, Britney Spears, David Bowie, Camilla Parker Bowles. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here. Monica Lewinsky, Humphrey Bogart, Joe Biden, Mel Gibson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Heidi Klum, and Robert Pattinson. Okay, all right. So now we're at Juno and Capricorn are in the 10th house. So love is very serious business and traditional, and they're married to their careers. Again, you might be attracted to much older people who kind of represent the father or the mother figure. A partner who helps your career and social standing would also be very important, or that you meet and you work in similar businesses or have similar, very much long-term shared goals. You're going to help each other to get to the top of your goals, right? So you can build very patiently. This is a marriage that would last because it's about a long-standing relationships, and you have the discipline to go the distance. Also, people might be late bloomers in relationships. You might not really find your soulmate or lover until you're much older and more mature. So this placement, they can appear kind of sedate, but they can be really wild in bed. Capricorn is like a horny goat, right? So the shadow side of Juno and Capricorn, they get bored because the partner can be too conservative. You can be overly doing or helpful. They can be married for tradition, arranged marriages as well. It can be Juno and Capricorn. And again, not wanting to leave because fear of, losing the social status or the career success that comes from yourself or your partner. Again, they can be married to their career. And some women with Juno and Capricorn can realize too late that they've missed their opportunity for love and children, especially when they hit menopause. Famous celebs with Juno and Capricorn: Jennifer Aniston, Jennifer Lopez, who just got engaged for the second time, Nicki Minaj, Jay-Z, Prince William, Mick Jagger, who's also had I don't know how many marriages and children, Gwen Stefani, Tom Hanks, Robert De Niro, and Timothy Chalamet. Juno and Aquarius. It just skips ahead. That's what's happening here. So Juno and Aquarius are the 11th house. This is about fluid gender relationships. So again, LGBTQ, trans, or asexual relationships. You're more like comrades in arms, or you share ideals. You want to change the world together. You're kind of this revolutionary out there, very much your own unique people. You can spot them by the way they dress, or, very different individuals, strong individuals. Unconventional. So this would be where you're attracted to people who are unconventional. You're here to kind of break the rules together, okay? So you must be involved with organizations and causes. That's also part of it. So again, dating on the internet would be very much the norm with Jupiter and Aquarius, especially these days, dating apps. So people with Juno and Aquarius have to share a love of ideals. They can be very humanitarian or even scientific. So love is kind of like a technique. So you might find it to be kind of cool and detached, which can be good in some ways, because sometimes you need that, intellectual detachment to look at any underlying emotional issues or grievances. So partners, again, related as equals. This is an equal relationship. No one has hierarchical power above the other in this relationship. So, but you might find your partner to be a little bit too cool or detached or observing, and that might kind of drive you crazy as well. So the shadow side of that is the need to settle down and have kids is too conventional, so they never want to make that commitment, or they have an open marriage. So one person might feel stifled or caged if they don't really want to be in that type of relationship. You may never know what they're really feeling. Their detachment can be quite infuriating. They might withdraw communication as a means of control, because you remember Aquarius is still a fixed sign, and their duty might be to change the world. So this might be where your partner is always out changing the world, and but not there for you personally. I think in that movie that just came out about the guy who wrote Rent, there's a scene that they've been showing where she's complaining, he's always devoted to his project, or whatever, something out there, but never really paying attention to the other partner, which is very much a Juno. Jupiter was out philandering around, so he wasn't there with her. That's very much a Juno and Aquarius issue. So celebrities with Juno and Aquarius: Queen Elizabeth II, Nikola Tesla, Elvis Presley, Sigmund Freud, President JFK Jr., Bjork. She's very much a very unique artist and individual. Jim Morrison, Putin, Robert Downey Jr., J.K. Rowling, and Jesus, apparently. We don't know about that one. Okay, so now we're at the last here. Juno and Pisces are in the 12th house. So this is definitely where Juno and Pisces yearns for the soulmate, a total merge into the other. So they can have this fantasy lovers, very dramatic love addictions, sex addictions, not being there for the other person, martyrdom, kind of toxic relationships, attracted to being victims or attracted to victims, that you're going to save them with your love. They must have shared spiritual and religious beliefs. It's very important with Jupiter and Pisces. Or they could have sex as a ritual, a sacred communion, a sacred marriage, tantric sex, but also codependent toxic relationships. So you would sacrifice everything for love. This is also hidden love affairs, secrets, a confined love. You can go crazy over love. It can be like narcissist as well. That can be the downside of that. It could be like mental illness, again, that kind of stalking. Remember that stalking love. And very much attracted to creative people, artists, rock stars, Hollywood stars. This is where you have a kind of fantasy about, some famous rock star. That could be also Jupiter and Pisces and in the 12th house. So the shadow side of that is one changes absolutely to being what the lover wants. That's that famous Pisces chameleon-like ability, I'll just become what you want. So you might change and lose yourself totally in the relationship. So this can also be unrequited love. I love them, they don't love me back. Also guilt. I'm guilty for not loving you enough. I didn't do enough, or being a victim in love. And also never getting over a lost love. I'm pining, I'm holding on. And love can be very tragic, and love hurts. Love does hurt, but kind of with Jupiter and Pisces, that could be a heavy, that becomes a shadow side. So famous celebrities with Juno and Pisces, Princess Diana. She was definitely in the 12th house, kind of locked away there. Marilyn Monroe also had quite tragic. She was, of course, the sex goddess projection of every man in America when she was super famous, and she still can be. Leonardo DiCaprio, again, another kind of guy who gets a lot of fantasy. George Clooney, Melania Trump, Stevie Nicks from Fleetwood Mac, and William Shakespeare. Talked a lot about love, Romeo and Juliet, all of that stuff. Okay, so now I want to thank you very much. This is 2 hours. Thank you very much for joining this workshop. I hope that it's really inspired you to work with Juno as your own inner genie and your fairy godmother, and offering you multidimensional ways to be magnificent in the world. Okay, and there's this books that I reference, sources for this material. I want to thank Gail for inviting me, and if you want to get in touch with me, I do other workshops, guided meditations, and events. And so, yeah, so thank you. So,
Thank you. Wow, that's
Thank
great. I've enjoyed it very much. I'm sure everybody else has.
okay, thank you so much. Now, there's a couple of, is there some other questions here that people want me to ask here quickly? Okay, many thanks. Come on down. Okay, Elon Musk, when he married his first wife, told his new wife that he needed to be the dominant one in the marriage, right? Yes, I was reading about that the other day. Gail wants to know, is there a way where Juno is in her charts? Okay, you just go to Asteroids, you just mark in the asteroids. They're marked when you put in extra features. It's very easy to find all of the asteroids at Asteroids there. So she's asked you to do it though for her. Okay, so Juno is at Scorpio, 23 degrees. Okay. All right.
That's
there we go.
Dawn's chart. Dawn has that Juno and Scorpio. Janet helped her figure out where it was.
Okay, great. Okay. So again, if you're just getting started with Juno, there's so much to learn.
Kathleen has raised her hand. She has a question.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, Kathleen.
How would this work with transits? Because it seems to be in one sign for 4 years. So,
okay. Well, then you would just look, sorry, you would just look at, this 4 years is kind of like, every year she would pass through 3 signs, generally. So you might want to break the year down into quarters and look at what quarter, what signs, Juno is passing through and how she's become more prominent, or how you can work with her more directly, during that.
3 signs in a year?
Yeah, if it takes her 4 years, right? Archetypally, that's, yeah. That's off the top of my head, if it's 12 signs, it takes 4 years and a bit. But also I would look at when you have your Juno return, very much so when Juno comes back to where, so more personally, where is Juno in my chart? But yeah, that would be a good thing to track and focus as she moves through the houses or makes aspects to other planets, what you would really focus on there.
Yeah, because there's times I could tell you when Juno was my friend.
Right.
Other times,
Yes.
that's what makes you think about the transit.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, and especially, that she's connected to Mars and Saturn right now, people really need to work with her, I guess, because it's a pretty heavy aspect. Although Mars is going to move ahead, but, she's probably going to be in touch with Saturn for a little while because she doesn't move that fast, right?
And thank you for all the ritual stuff. I like that.
Yeah, well, that's one of my big things, is really bring the rituals like the Greeks did, or I love that Homeric hymn, that really makes it real, and really just getting out under the sky and feeling the presence, right? It really is just about being conscious. So yeah, I hope if you take this to heart and start to work with her, and she really does bring magic into your life and your relationships.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, everybody. It's been a wonderful presentation, and yeah, thank you so much. And I hope everybody's enjoyed it. And if you want to get in touch with me after, I'm also doing a workshop. I'm just going to mention this on the 11th on Monday for the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. At 7:30 p.m. I'm in Eastern Daylight Time here, so it's like 6 o'clock p.m. my time now. If you want to sign up for that, you can go to my website, taratarot.com. I'm doing it by donation, actually, because it is so important for, I believe, I'd heard people talking before this about, how, got to have hope and faith. And I'm with Maurice Fernandez here, who wrote a wonderful book about Neptune, actually about, really, this is the sign we've all been waiting for. It's like, if we're going to create a whole new worldview and spirituality, this is on this Jupiter-Neptune rare once in 166 years connection. The last time they met, it was the beginning of the Theosophy movement, of hypnosis, of Madame Blavatsky, which represented, out of that became the Golden Dawn. Spirituality, there was a spiritualism in America, people being mediums, channeling the dead, all of that became kind of the foundation for what New Age, a lot of New Age spirituality is based on Madame Blavatsky. She doesn't get referenced as much as she should these days. Alice Bailey came out of her. And so that's whole, that's come to a close. So it's now up to us in a much more conscious way to really bring in Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, along with Venus too. Mars is going to be there as well, to really initiate, that beautiful heaven world that we want to see. It's super important right now. So I'm inviting all of you to join that workshop. It's going to be on Zoom. And if you can't make it live, it will be recorded. And I have actually a special musical guest, a wonderful singer, songwriter, poet named Pamela Jane Durand, who has come to some of my other workshops. I think Gail came to one of my other workshops. I don't remember if Pamela was there, but she's a professional singer, songwriter, actress, and she's really amazing. So I'm very happy. I have to speak to her actually right after this. She's going to be coming and singing or doing sound healing or vibrating or whatever it is she's going to channel. And actually, if you want to, I can put in a link if you want to go listen to her song. We were talking about music before. She has a beautiful song on YouTube that's called Love Is All, and her name is Pamela Jane Durand. She's also a Canadian singer from Stratford, Ontario, where Justin Bieber is from too. Anyway, so if you want to check that out, that would be wonderful if you would all join me or tell your friends, because I think the more people that come together for this, I'm sure people have done astrology workshops. I haven't really noticed that there's a big worldwide meditation going on with this. I know there's usually a lot of sort of commercialized stuff that goes along with this. I haven't really seen it put out there that there's a lot of meditation. So, again, 23 degrees Pisces, come and meet me there, and Pam there as well. All right. So thank you so much, everybody. I had a wonderful time.
I recommend everybody sign up for your emails, your blogs. That
Yes,
you give
yes.
a wealth of information. Your information is on the flyer that is on our website.
Right.
2022 events, so people can find your information
Right. Okay.
at any time by going on our website. And
And then my old website's going to be upgraded very soon too. So we're looking forward to that. So thank you so much, everybody. I do hope you enjoyed it and you got a lot out of it, and my blessings. And I hope to see you again real soon. All right. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Gail,
Tara.
and everybody. Okay.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.